What the shell? This is a module that is a prerequisite for upload vulnerabilities module, which is a part of the complete beginner path that we are doing on TryHackMe. And we have task number 1, what the shell? Before we can go into the intricacies of sending and receiving shells, it's important to understand what a shell actually is. In the simplest possible terms, shells are what we use when interfacing with a command line environment, CLI. When we have a command line interface, which is a graphical interface, there we interact with a shell to talk with the computer or to send commands to the computer. In other words, the common bash or sh programs in Linux are examples of shells. Bash is the most used shell on Linux, PowerShell on Windows. For example, the terminal is a command line interface, but bash is a shell on Linux, actually the most used shell. Command.exe and PowerShell are the most known on Windows. When targeting remote systems, it is sometimes possible to force an application running on the server, such as a web server, for example, to execute arbitrary code. When this happens, we want to use this initial access to obtain a shell running on target. In simple terms, we can force the remote server to either send us commands line access to the server, which is a reverse shell, or to open up a port on the server which we can connect to in order to execute further commands, which is a bind shell. We'll be covering both of these scenarios in further details through the room. The format of this room is as follows. The bulk of the room is made up of information with examples given in code blocks and screenshots. There are 2 virtual machines, one Linux, one Windows. In the last 2 tasks of the room, they can be used to practice the techniques demonstrated. There are example practice questions in task number 13. Feel free to work through these or follow along with the tasks as you complete them. Without further ado, let's begin. I love this kind of direct approach. Answer the questions below. Read and understand the introduction. Complete.